On a long, lonely stretch of road, a car drove steadily north. There were no other cars in sight. The car pulled off the lonely road and onto a smaller, lonelier road, barely visible as two tire tracks in the dirt. After another mile or two, the car arrived at a work site. There were no signs anywhere to suggest where this place was located or what the eventual purpose of what it would be. But there were signs of progress and vigorous activity and a sense of urgency. It was most definitely a construction site, but what was being constructed was far from clear. No structures rose up from the ground on this windswept plateau. It was also eerily quiet. No workers were present. There were gigantic machines scattered around, earth movers, diggers, drillers, excavators, leviathans of steel that were all dormant at the moment. The machines surrounded a huge circular hole in the ground, well over 200 meters in diameter. Pipes and cables had been dropped down the sides and fastened to a catwalk system of stairs that descended down into the depths. The car approached the center of the site and parked near one of the outbuildings. 3 people exited the car. The driver was Joseph Locke, a gray-haired man with round glasses and a scholarly look about him. His passengers were Jeannie, his adult daughter, stubbornly passive, who turned her collar up against the cold, and an 8-year-old boy, Joseph's grandson, Dalton. Joseph took Dalton's hand and they walked toward the hole. Jeannie followed, but at a distance. The wind came in intermittent gusts. There were dark clouds gathering on the horizon, but they were still far away. They stopped at the edge of the chasm. Joseph let go of Dalton's hand and looked down at his grandson. Dalton was staring into the depths, but he seemed unafraid.
You built this?
No, I designed it. I didn't actually do any of the digging.
Mom says she doesn't want to live there. Why?
Joseph looked back at Jeannie, who was staring at them from a distance. She seemed agitated, but said nothing.
Dalton, the world is changing. Things are getting harder and harder for people. There are diseases spreading, wars that don't seem to end, and food shortages. It's becoming harder and harder to survive up here.
What will happen to us if we stay?
It's possible that we could get sick or hurt, and there wouldn't be anyone around to help us. We could run out of food or water. That's why we need to build a place where we can stay safe and protected, no matter what happens up here.
Why don't we go to one of the stations?
A great idea that hasn't come to fruition. The great leaders promised us a new world in the stars, but we just don't have that capability yet. Those stations they tout as our salvation have a very limited capacity. They are only for the elite. To truly save humanity, we need the ability to feed and house thousands and rebuild our society so when the time comes, we can repopulate the Earth. We'll have everything we need down there to live comfortably and safely for a long time. Hundreds of years if need be. Perhaps thousands.
So, we'll be safe down there?
Yes, we will be in the safest place on Earth. We'll have everything we need to live, and we won't have to worry about anything. We'll be able to survive no matter what happens up here on the surface. And most importantly, we'll be in control of our destiny.
Dalton nodded, still looking a bit unsure. Joseph put his arm around his grandson's shoulders and pulled him in for a hug.
I know this is a lot for you, Dalton, but we'll do it together. And once we're underground, we'll be safe, and we can build a new life for ourselves. Life is all about making tough choices, and this is one of the toughest I know. But we have a duty to save mankind and ourselves.
What about my friends? My school?
It's hard to leave all of that behind, Dalton, but it's a risk we can't afford to take. We need to be prepared for anything that might happen, and that means making sacrifices.
She doesn't want to go. She told me.
Joseph sighed and was silent for a moment. He looked back at his daughter, who was still a good distance back, as if she was afraid or unwilling to approach the dig site.
There will be non-believers, Dalton. That is to be expected. But we will save mankind. Like Noah, who was also ridiculed, we will be vindicated when our family's legacy is protected. And the wicked are banging on the door, begging to be let inside.
Because they won't be chipped, right?
That's right.
Joseph squatted down next to Dalton and rolled up his sleeve. A faint scar was on his forearm. Joseph tapped the scar.
These chips will make Subterra run more efficiently. We'll always know where everyone is.
Dalton looked down at his own forearm. A fresher pink scar was there. He smiled for a moment. Then a dark look came over him.
And what about Mom? She said she won't get the chip. Will you let her in without one?
You let me worry about that, boyo. I know how to talk to her.
In the distance, they could hear the first low grumble of thunder. A storm was encircling them and rapidly approaching. Joseph and Dalton turned and walked back to the car. 113 years later, Mal was in the middle of a heated argument with her mother, Greta. They were both in Mal's bedroom chambers in Edendale, the secure private quarters where all the Locks stayed. Some people called it the castle. While it was true that Joseph Locke, the original founder of Subterra, had used stones from a castle in Bremer, Scotland to build the compound, it felt more like a prison to Mal. It was a one-level round structure comprising 8 different living quarters or bedrooms. In the center of the structure, there was a large hall with vaulted ceilings and a grand stage in the center of the room. From there, actors put on productions, and musicians entertained members of Subterra's elite aristocracy. But at that moment, Mal was not in a festive mood. As soon as she had regained consciousness and had been cleared by Tomas, Greta dragged her back to Edendale. She wouldn't tell her anything about Ace, and Mal was getting tired of being stonewalled.
Where is he?
Every day it's the same argument with you, Mal.
Tell me what's going to happen to him.
The trial will decide that. Can we discuss what I came here for? I'm tired of this.
You keep telling me the trial will be a chance for Ace to speak the truth. But I don't believe you.
There's not much truth for him to speak. Kidnapping you and colluding with traitors?
Colluding? He didn't collude with anyone. He saved my life. Ace saved me.
You don't know anything.
I want to see him.
You'll see him at the trial.
Greta locked eyes with Mal for a beat, then turned away. She went to Mal's desk and picked up the box she had brought in earlier. She turned again, walked up to Mal, who was still seething, but quiet for the moment. Greta placed the box in Mal's lap, then stepped back.
What's this?
The magistrate is having a reception in 2 days.
Mal opened the box and saw a folded garment inside. She pulled it out and saw that it was a dress. The fabric shimmered and was adorned with intricate patterns of lace. Mal tossed the dress onto the floor.
No, I'm not going. I'm not doing anything until I see Ace.
Greta leaned down and got very close to Mal, staring at her with cold, unblinking eyes.
You have damaged our family's reputation. You have created discord and division amongst the leaders of Subterra. You are going to that reception and restore our good name and let everyone know you stand with the Locks.
I won't! I'm not wearing that dress, and I'm not going to any reception. I don't owe you anything.
Do you recall me almost bleeding out in Eagle's Nest? I almost died because of you.
Mal pulled back, frightened by the sudden outburst. Greta let go of Mal, took a step back from her daughter, trying to calm herself with a deep breath.
You've had your way your entire life. You've always been allowed to go wherever you please and do whatever you want. You've openly disregarded your responsibilities and obligations to this family. When you asked to go to Winter Garden to study with Tomas, I let you go. And see how my decision turned out? Now, you will do what I say.
I will not lie about what happened. Ace did nothing wrong.
Try the dress on. And for now, you are confined to your room.
What?
Greta activated a device on her wrist and tapped it twice. Above the door frame, a loud beep sounded. Greta exited and closed the door behind her. Mal ran to it, but it didn't automatically open. She waved her chip in front of the door and heard a buzzing tone. The door remained shut.
Mother! Mother!
She waved her chip again. The buzzing tone again. The door didn't move. Mal pounded on it with a closed fist.
Mother!
Ace sat alone in his bed in a small windowless cell, staring at an iron door. The only light came from a dim bulb on the ceiling. The only other furniture in the room was a small table and a single chair. A toilet and tiny sink were in the corner, jutting out from the wall. Ace didn't know how long he had been in the cell. Weeks? A month? He had no idea. His optics had been taken away from him, so all he could do was sleep and eat the 2 meals a day the sentry slid under his cell door. The rest of the time he just sat and stared. Nobody had come to see him, and when he tried to speak to the sentry outside, there was no response. Just the soft sounds of his boots as he walked back to his post. He thought a lot about Mal and his brief time on the surface, but mostly he thought about Hazel. Where was she? What had happened to her? Was she looking for him? One time, just as the sentry slid his food under the door, Ace had shouted, asking him what happened to Hazel. The sentry did not respond, but Ace had thought he had heard him chuckling to himself and muttering something under his breath as he walked away. Just as Ace was about to lie back in the bed, he heard a noise. Someone was talking. Ace went to the door to listen. He knew that voice. It was Tomas. He pressed his ear to the door to catch bits of the conversation.
No admittance. Dalton Locke's orders.
I was just with him in his chambers. He asked me to collect some data.
I wasn't informed of...
We need to know why this boy was not affected by the conditions on the surface. I must run more tests.
I'll need to see some authorization.
I have an official document from Edendale. Look.
I don't see any order from Dalton.
Enough! I'm already running behind. I will make sure Dalton knows that you're responsible when I'm late with the report he's expecting.
There was silence for a moment. Then Ace heard a pair of footsteps approaching. He went back to the bed and sat down. Seconds later, he heard a beeping and a hydraulic hiss as the door locks engaged. The heavy door swung open with a groan, and Ace could see Tomas and the sentry standing behind him.
Knock when you're finished.
Tomas nodded and walked inside. The door closed automatically behind him, but the locks did not engage.
Hello, Ace.
Hello. Tomas placed his bag of medical scanners and devices on the table and sat down in the chair. He looked at Ace for a moment, as if he was looking for any obvious sign of trauma or distress.
How are you? It's been a while since I saw you in the med deck.
Where am I?
Are they feeding you?
What is this place? Tomas put his finger to his lips, begging Ace to lower his voice, then looked at the door.
I'm going to run some tests on you. It won't take too long. Now, take a deep breath.
Tomas was still looking at the door as he continued talking.
That's it. Another deep breath. Good.
A second later, they could both hear footsteps as the sentry walked away from the closed door. Tomas turned back to Ace and suddenly looked very serious. He spoke in a hushed but urgent tone.
You're in New Bramer, sub-level 4. This is a holding cell for prisoners about to be tried. It's been out of commission for 60 years.
They're really going through with it?
They are. Sedition is a serious charge, Ace. They are calling you a traitor. I know it was you who saved Mal, but what I know doesn't matter.
Why not?
The trial is just a show for the citizens of the bunker. They're not after the truth. All they want to do is clear Mal's name of any wrongdoing.
But she didn't do anything wrong. It was Carter. He brainwashed her and used his chip to help him and his followers get to the surface.
Please calm down. Ace, it might not mean much, but I believe you.
Where is Mal? Is she okay?
She made a full recovery and she's in Edendale, confined to her quarters for now.
And what about Hazel? What did they do to her?
Hazel? Oh, that's right, your little bot. I don't know where they took it. I haven't seen the bot since the sentries seized her from my lab.
What's gonna happen to me?
I don't know for sure, but it will be best for you to apologize for your crimes and beg for mercy. The Locks can be cruel, but they're simply trying to keep their house in order. Ace, I'm here because I owe you a debt. You saved Mal, and I won't forget it. Admit your guilt, and the court might go easy on you. It's the only way. It's the only way. They're not interested in the truth. The alternative could be not very good for you.
With that, Tomas placed the stethoscope back in the bag and zipped it up. He rose from the chair and walked back to the cell door. He rapped on the door twice, then called out.
All done in here.
Dalton Locke's private chambers were also in Edendale. Greta was there, in Dalton's study, seated in front of an antique ornate desk made from some type of polished exotic wood, a rare treasure in Subterra. She was staring down at the slate in her lap, an electronic touchscreen device, swiping through various digital documents. Every so often, she stole a glance at the man sitting behind the desk. He was absorbed in his own slate, reviewing similar digital files. His hair was gray, and so was his thick beard, save for a black streak that ran down the middle. He wore glasses, and his brow was furrowed in concentration. His clothing, while not in the military style of Greta's uniform, still had some air of authority, with a dark overcoat trimmed in silver piping and a stiff collar on his linen shirt. He picked up a cup and drank from it briefly before returning to the documents. This was Dalton Locke III, current Regent Supervisor of Subterra, and Greta Locke's father.
We have more video, but Malin is in all the footage. I want to avoid using it at trial if we can.
Dalton nodded his head once. A soft noise escaped him. Greta couldn't be sure if he was agreeing or disagreeing. She looked back down at her files, waiting for him to say something, but he remained silent, his face inscrutable. Greta swiped her finger across the screen of her slate, turning it off. She stood and began pacing.
Mal will be attending Magistrate Tarkin's reception, as requested.
Greta took a few more steps, aimlessly walking around the study. There were several old photographs on the wall of a construction site. One photo showed a celebration with a group of men gathered around the finished upper blast door to Subterra, breaking a ceremonial bottle of champagne against the hardened steel. A framed oil-on-canvas portrait was hung over the fireplace. Joseph Locke was the subject, looking very old and stern. He wore the very same pair of eyeglass frames that Dalton now wore, a family heirloom handed down to all Regent supervisors.
I've made her aware of her duty to repair the family's name and her reputation.
I'm sure she will do her job. She's a curious girl, bright and inquisitive, but at her core, she's loyal. What I'm more concerned about is this trial with the bunker orphan Ace.
Concerned? His guilt is evident. Everyone will see that. As adjudicator, I'll make damn sure of it.
Is that so? You're confident?
You can trust me to handle it, sir.
I trusted you to safeguard Eagle's Nest. I tasked you to keep the door to the surface protected, didn't I?
I walked into a trap, and it almost cost me my life. I won't make that mistake again.
You were beaten by a bunker orphan and a gas-huffing con man. You made us look weak and foolish. My great-grandfather put his faith in this family to maintain order and control of Subterra.
From the day you put me in charge of the brigade, haven't I maintained order and control? Have I not served the bunker honorably?
You let Mal slip away from us, from her family. She has clouded your judgment. Mal is your child, and that bond is powerful. But the safety of the citizens of this bunker is paramount. I expect loyalty from my team, my family.
I won't let you down, Father. That boy will be dealt with at trial, and everyone in Subterra will see that the Locks are firmly at the helm. I will not let Mal cloud my resolve.
This trial means much more than determining the guilt or innocence of one outcast. We must galvanize the bunker as one and reinforce our mission. And I have lost my faith in you to see this through.
I'm ready. I am ready for this trial. I will not fail you.
Go then. I'm sure you have much to do to prepare.
Greta nodded, picked up her slate, and withdrew from Dalton's study. Once outside, she exhaled, as if she had been holding her breath during the entire exchange. She would do her duty, as ordered, but knew that the slightest mistake could turn her father against her.
We've got 3 casualties and multiple injuries in Section 41 Alpha.
What happened?
Another cave-in, sir.
Shut down the exhaust vent, keep an eye on the pressure gauge, and don't let it get over 110 psi. And don't move the bodies. I'm headed there now. I'm bringing a medvac kit. Gannon out.
Hell's Gate was 37 sublevels below Edendale. It was the primary ore processing station and metalworks for Subterra. It was the lowest original level of the bunker before mining operations had commenced decades before. The mining operations had created an intricate network of shafts and tunnels miles long, deep into the planet's crust. The ore and raw materials were brought back to Hell's Gate for refinement. It was the primary power plant for all the upper levels. While Dalton was in control of the bunker, his authority was somewhat diminished beyond the border of Hell's Gate. The mines and the miners who worked and lived there were under the supervision of Gannon Locke, Dalton's younger brother by 2 years, the man who was racing to the scene of the accident. Joseph Locke, the brother's great-great-grandfather, was fond of tradition. His ancestors were from Scotland, and there were several monarchs and royalty in his lineage. He based control of Subterra on the ancient rules of succession. The firstborn was always the heir. But society had evolved greatly in the years before the Great Fall. Joseph did away with the patriarchal interpretation of the rule, and any firstborn child, regardless of gender, was promised a seat at the head of the table. And so, control and Joseph's eyeglasses were passed on to Dalton. As the younger brother, Gannon's duties had nothing to do with controlling a society of 10,000 humans living miles underground. They had nothing to do with managing a military to fend off attacks and keep the peace. They had nothing to do with healing the sick, or providing food or clean water to drink. His job was to dig. He managed all the operations in the mine. They provided iron ore and other raw materials necessary for repairs to the bunker's infrastructure. They provided copper and silicon to manufacture computer chips and other electronic equipment. But most importantly, they provided power. Gannon's miners provided coal, tapped into geothermal caches, and redirected underground lava streams to turn massive steam turbines. All this power was created in the power plant under Hell's Gate and was distributed through the bunker, from the chute to Eagle's Nest. And while this fact gave Gannon a sense of importance, he was failing in his duty. Miners lived everywhere in the tunnels, setting up new camps as they dug new shafts. But there was a permanent camp at Oxford Turn. It was created when a team of miners discovered a massive vein of rhodium in the Oxford Tunnel just below Hell's Gate. Rhodium had to be mined with care, so the tunnel was widened and hollowed out into a large man-made cavern. Several permanent structures were erected to extract the valuable rhodium. The tunnel and all digging operations turned 90 degrees, and the establishment was known afterwards as Oxford Turn. That's where Gannon Locke lived, along with the majority of the miners and engineers, and he based his command and control center down there. The mines were a dangerous place to live and work. Mortality rates were much different down here. The perils included toxic gas exposure, radiation poisoning, industrial accidents, and always the risk of running into a mutant monstrosity.
Overeared, sir.
Gannon arrived at the accident site and stared down at 3 bodies covered in gray sheets. There were mourners there, kneeling next to and standing over the shrouds. They were crying and sobbing, men, women, and children. Gannon made eye contact with a young girl, no older than 6 or 7 cycles. She stared at him, clearly in pain and shock at the loss of her parents. She stared so long, Gannon had to look away. Then a man in a hooded cloak approached Gannon. His face was obscured by the dim lighting. Gannon's security team held the man at bay, but Gannon made them move back with the wave of his hand.
Did you see what happened?
Did I see what happened? I saw it all. They were pushing too hard and too fast into a pocket of calcite. It collapsed. By the time we could dig them out, it was too late.
I see.
We need a break. We can't keep going like this. More will die. And for what? So the citizens of the chute can keep their pub clubs open and stay warm and cozy in their homes.
Gannon looked down at the gray sheets. He could see a bloodied hand sticking out.
I understand your frustration, and I share it.
But what are you going to do about it? 3 dead today. That's 10 deaths in less than 4 lunar cycles. And all you give us are words.
Gannon did not respond. Instead, he turned away and walked back toward the settlement of Oxford Turn. Despite the horrific accident, work continued. Digging machines rumbled past. Hydraulic machinery thumped as drills dug new tunnels. Steam hissed from release valves on pipes that crisscrossed the high ceiling of the cavern. Gannon kept going, passing the living quarters and market that served the miners. He approached the center of the settlement and walked towards the main building that acted as his home and the command center for the mines. His security detail posted up outside his door as he opened it. Gannon entered, and as soon as he closed the hatch, the sounds from outside were muted considerably. His office was sparsely furnished and quite Spartan in relation to his brother Dalton's study. Gannon lived like his people. Few creature comforts. Life on the edge. He walked to a wall filled with monitors. He keyed a slate device mounted to the wall and tapped the screen, inputting his private command code. The device lit up with a menu of options and Gannon made his selection, then waited. After 5 or 6 chimes, the screen flickered to life. A grainy live stream video of Dalton at his desk appeared on the screen.
Gannon? We're not due to speak for...
There's been another accident.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What can I do?
3 more workers have died.
That is unfortunate, but accidents are not uncommon down there. Comes with the territory, I'm afraid.
3 of my people are dead.
Yes. And you have my condolences. Will this affect the production rate?
Miners die, and all you care about is the damn production rate?
I care about one thing, keeping Subterra's power uninterrupted. So I'm saddened to hear that some of our citizens died. But my focus is on maintaining that production rate, a rate that you agreed to. If Subterra goes dark, we are doomed.
They're being pushed too hard. This can't continue.
Gannon, I have no time for this. My trial of that bunker rebel begins tomorrow. I need you to step into your role and manage the situation.
My people are running out of patience, Dalton. They're desperate.
Spare me the theatrics, brother. For me to ensure our survival, I must be removed from the plight of the individual. It brings me no pleasure to make these decisions. I gather no joy from hearing of another death in the mines. It wears on my soul as it would any man. But you and I have a job to do.
We need to roll back production by 8% for now. Some services will be affected, but everyone should be making the same sacrifices as my people.
Absolutely not, Gannon. You need to hear me. That will not happen.
I am telling you, we need to cut back on the quotas, or there will be...
Or what? Do I need to send a garrison of sentries down there to remind you and your miners of the role they play in all this?
Dalton, I am asking you as your brother.
I trust that you will figure it out. My job is up here, your job is down there. That's how this works. That's the plan that Joseph made, and it is our duty to follow it. If you can't maintain the production rate, maybe the next person to go on trial will be any miner that fails to meet their quota.
I give up. You can't punish us anymore.
But Dalton turned away from the screen, and then his image suddenly flickered and disappeared from the slate. Gannon sighed heavily, not knowing what he was going to tell his people. 2 levels up from Hell's Gate, in the outer reaches of the Barrens, a man walked toward a structure in a dead-end chamber. Nobody knew his real name, but he was known as the Pitmaster. The place was called Obsidian Star, and it was a gambling arena. It had gotten its name when tunneling miners ran into a massive vein of obsidian that was too thick to tunnel through. The chamber had been hollowed out as the miners searched for new paths to tunnel, but the obsidian was on all sides and they just backed out and dug elsewhere. The chamber soon became a place where miners and engineers would come to congregate, drink, and gamble. Gannon Locke knew about Obsidian Star but turned a blind eye, since it was the only release his people could get. The pressures of the job and the dangers they faced every day were so great, Gannon figured it was better that they let off steam there. Eventually, they decided to dig a gladiator pit in the center of the chamber. Fighting matches were organized, and on those occasions, Obsidian Star would fill up with drunk, howling patrons betting on their favorite fighter. As a rule, the matches were not to the death, but that didn't mean that there weren't broken bones or bloodshed. The fights were brutal and intense, but still maintained a sense of restraint when the outcome of the match was no longer in doubt. This went on for months until a fighter was accidentally killed when his head struck the floor and fractured his skull. When Gannon found out, he put a stop to the matches. That's when the Pitmaster came up with an idea. He would fight bots instead of humans. He purchased outdated models or damaged or discarded bots until he had a full roster of fighters. Since the combatants were no longer human, Gannon allowed the fights to continue. The Pitmaster walked to the gladiator pit and used a ladder to climb down. The pit was round, 10 meters in diameter and 5 meters deep. It was large enough to maneuver, but small enough to ensure the fighters had no choice but to clash eventually, as there was nowhere to run. There was a single metal door on the wall. The Pitmaster opened his shirt to reveal a long metal key on a leather strip that hung around his neck. He shoved the metal key into the slot and pulled the heavy door open. He entered and turned on the lights. It was a long but narrow room. The walls were lined with cages of varying sizes. As the lights illuminated the space, the pitmaster could see all of the bots inside the cages. They were dormant for now, powered off. There was complete silence inside the room. The pitmaster walked past the cages, looking at each bot as he passed. There were some older mass models there, mostly Type 3s and 4s, but in good fighting condition. In the next cage, he could see a repair service bot called an A-Tech. It was useless at fighting, really, but sometimes the crowd needed to see a bloodbath in the undercards, and the A-Techs served that purpose well. The next bot was housed in a cage that stretched to the ceiling. It was a bot that looked to be more the size of a horse than a dog. It was a Chigari brute. Built in the early days of Subterra as an ore harvester, it was designed to do the work of 100 miners. However, the brute had a defect that made it unpredictable. It would bore into tunnel walls and ceilings without warning, causing cave-ins and tunnel collapses. The bot soon earned the nickname Bone Collector due to the increasing number of accidental deaths it caused. No matter how hard the engineers tried, they couldn't fix the problem. After an incident with a brute barreling into an ore station and killing 7 miners, the bot was discontinued and decommissioned. The pitmaster had the last remaining Chigari and had paid a hefty price to get it. It was a bot destroyer, and nothing could challenge it in the arena. The crowds filled Obsidian Star whenever they heard the brute was fighting a match. The pitmaster smiled as he looked over his prized possession. It was the only bot he had given a name, and he considered it his own pet.
Don't worry, Brutus. I'll find you a worthy opponent soon. A bot you could really sink your teeth into.
He moved to the last cage in the room. At first it seemed empty. The pitmaster seemed confused and stepped forward to get a better look.
Escaped? That's impossible.
He put his hand on the cage door and started to undo the locking mechanism when a bot charged out of the shadows in the rear of the cage and tried to bite the pitmaster's hand. He screamed in surprised shock and pulled back his hand quickly before the jaws could clamp down on him. He took a step back and stared at the bot. The bot stared right back, turned its broken ear toward the pitmaster. It was Hazel.
Oh, you sneaky cur. How did you power yourself on?
He opened his robe, revealing a cattle prod hanging from his belt. He powered it on as it crackled with electricity.
I'm gonna teach you some manners. You filthy bot.
He tried to zap her again, but she dodged and danced out of range. Frustrated, the pitmaster powered off the weapon and stood back.
You will learn to obey, you little Darva model. Brutus will make sure of that. Oh, the fun you and I are gonna have.
Hazel sat down in the rear of the cage and waited.
Subterra, written and produced by Steve Kruger and Warren Davis. Narrated by Marty Yu. Performed by Cece Boyce, Jeanette Goldstein, John Sylvain, Doug Perkins, Hugh Fink, Matt Williams, Steve Kruger, Kayana Morgan, Tim Stevenson, and Marty Yu.